like I said, I'm going to bring Rashid in, but it was like a three-part question that I need to ask, and you asked, I mean, you answered me, but I wanted to go back to something that you said, and you were talking about um, when the United States illegally and unlawfully pulled out of the JCPOA, right? And
Yes.
you and this and how you were saying that Trump doesn't think about the ramifications of the policies that he enacts. And I want to bring something up here. I'm going to bring it to line. I just want you to listen to John Kerry. John Kerry, the former Secretary of State.
Yes.
Um, I'm going to bring it to you. Let me see. It takes me a second to let me get stop screen. Okay, we'll bring it right here. Give me 1 second. Um, Here we are right here. And I want you to see this, and I'm going to play this for you. Um, and listen to what John Kerry said, and everything that he warned and about when it comes to the JCPOA. It seems like Trump just ignored everything that he warned because he was talking about that the dollar hegemony or
Yes.
hung by a thread, and if America did this, did that, then this would spell the end of the dollar. And Trump comes in and he does exactly what John Kerry said would spell the end. I just want you to listen to this. This is a 3 minute and 48 second clip.
Exactly.
And, all right, here we are, right here.
When people say, oh my gosh, I'm worried about what happens in year 15 or 20, they may become a nuclear threshold nation. Folks, they are a nuclear threshold nation today. They became that. And they became that while we had a policy of no enrichment. A country that's mastered the fuel cycle.
People say, oh, we've got the 5+1 together again and negotiate a better deal. You're beginning to deal with that. Will you deal with the problem of getting that 5+1 again to get on the same position you're in now?
I stopped there for 1 minute because remember Trump has said the exact same thing, the exact same thing.
Yes.
Now we'll go further.
One of the reasons, Sir Harry, that we felt it was important to move forward with this negotiation is the fact that the sanctions was already framed. Remember, folks, we don't trade with Iran. We have a primary embargo. And by the way, the primary embargo will stay. But if everybody thinks, oh no, we're just tough, the United States of America, we have our secondary sanctions, we can force people to do what we want. I actually heard that argument on television this morning. I've heard it from a number of the organizations that are working that are opposed to this agreement. They're spreading the word, America is strong enough, our banks are tough enough, we can just bring the hammer down and force our friends to do what we want them to. Well, look, there are a lot of business people in this room. Are you kidding me? The United States is going to start sanctioning our allies and their banks and their businesses because
Isn't that what Trump is doing now? I stopped it again because isn't that exactly what he's doing now, threatening his European partners and threatening everyone who disobeys the U.S. dictates? This
Oh, no
was
question about it. And it's not simply with Iran, but look at the complete breakdown in American Russian relationship since the end of the Cold War, and especially in recent years. My father was a U.S. intelligence officer at the height of the Cold War. He was in the United States Air Force, the organization that he worked for about a dozen years at the very height of the Cold War. Was involved with the Francis Gary Power U-2 spy incident and all the rest of it. And it was widely believed after the fall of the Berlin Wall, and if we go back that far in the political stream, we have to remember that it was Ronald Reagan who had engaged in some very meaningful arms negotiations deals with the former Soviet Union. And it was George Herbert Walker Bush in the wake of the fall of the Berlin Wall, who promised Mr. Gorbachev that the United States would use this opportunity with the demise of the former Soviet Union to herald a new day in American-Russian relationships. We would not attempt to recruit Warsaw Pact countries into NATO, said Mr. Bush. We would abide by treaties like the INF Treaty. We would not engage in attempts to move American and NATO assets closer, military assets closer to Russian borders. We would not attempt to encircle Russia, and we would be in a position, hopefully, to where both the United States and the Russians, with the end of the Cold War, to mutually begin to reduce the incredible expenditures of our respective military industrial complexes and move on to a better day. What has happened since? Both with Bill Clinton onward, through every American president that we have had since that time, and most obviously now with the last, with Bush 2, and with Obama and with Trump, we have seen a series of promises broken to the Russians that have made the present foreign policy of the United States toward Russia an absolute beacon of instability and irresponsibility, much as we have done with the Iranians. It doesn't take a real genius to look at the number of Warsaw Pact countries that have been recruited into NATO to recognize that there's an issue here. We keep having military exercises ever closer to Putin's borders. We continue to be involved in pulling out of treaties like the INF Treaty unilaterally and the ABM Treaty with Russia unilaterally. And then, of course, there's the whole question of something that was facilitated by Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden and Victoria Nuland, and that was the illegal coup d'etat in the Ukraine in February of 2014 and the overthrow of the Poroshenko regime, which has led to a circumstance now where the Russians are very much aware that on their southern underbelly, especially with the situation in Ukraine and the diabolical mess that the United States has made of both Libya and its illegal activities in Syria, this whole question of a new day in American-Russian relationships after the fall of the Berlin Wall, that's over. That's squandered. We're in a circumstance now where, on the basis of American activities in these last several presidential administrations, including the current one, where when Vladimir Putin speaks, and he's a very careful fellow, but when we start seeing articles appearing in Russia Today and in Sputnik and in TASS and so forth and so on, heralding the latest Russian advancements in hypersonic missiles that travel at a number of times the speed of sound, it doesn't take a real genius to figure out that this is in response to all of this American jingoism in the Persian Gulf and in the Eastern Mediterranean and around the Black Sea, as well as at the entrance to the Strait of Hormuz, not to mention all of this American and NATO naval monkery that's going on in the Baltic region. These are reckless policies. This is not national defense that we are talking about here. And the most unbelievable aspect of it is that many of the leading advocates of NATO recklessness in continuing these policies have actually signed on to support Joe Biden. It's unbelievable to me that 300 ex-aides of John McCain of Arizona. And by the way, John McCain's entire political career was financed by his wife, Cindy Hensley McCain, whose father in the state of Arizona was a bagman for the Meyer Lansky Israeli crime syndicate. That is a very, very sordid situation, of course, that mainstream media has helped the McCain empire to keep largely silent for the American public. And, of course, the whole McCain state funeral heightened all of the things that supposedly this fellow had done in his life, which not only obscured his father-in-law's relationship with the biggest mogul in the Israeli crime syndicate in the United States, who had, by the way, if you read Michael Collins Piper's book, Final Judgment, and look at what Lawrence Guyano has written for the Unz Review, Meyer Lansky and David Ben-Gurion played a direct role in the assassination of John Kennedy. Now, that sounds like a rather extreme thesis until you look at the evidence, but nonetheless, that's the McCain lineage. And why is it now that Cindy McCain and 300 ex-aides to the late John McCain have made no secret of the fact in all of these media outlets, including Axios.com, where Cindy McCain was interviewed recently, they are embracing Joe Biden as General Michael Hayden, the former head of the CIA under George Bush, did today. This is very, very disturbing because when you start looking at the incredible irresponsibility in the American-Russian relationship, not to mention the Iranian, just focusing again on Russia for a moment, that has really gained a tremendous amount of steam from Bill Clinton onward. It begs the question as to why the American public continues to tolerate this jingoism, which is reckless, which is expensive, which gets back to what John Kerry was talking about when it comes to the American dollar. Can anyone believe that there's no relationship at all between the national debt of this country and the overextension of our military empire abroad, in the increasing trouble that the American dollar is in as the reserve currency of the world? Look at this BRICS organization: Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. They have formed, as I'm sure your listeners know, they have formed a bloc that will, in effect, either adopt a single currency of their own or will increasingly adopt the pattern of using their respective present national currencies in all kinds of international business deals that are designed to strike at the American dollar.